Good morning, Scouts. Erica from Scout Digital Training here. I hope you are all well this morning. I hope you're all settled. I hope you have a coffee, something ready to get you through these next 45 minutes where I'm going to be chatting to you all about how to focus on the information that really matters by removing IP addresses from your Google Analytics reports, which can help exclude internal traffic. And we'll chat about some quick other ways that you can use as well to tidy up your reports. Okay, a bit of housekeeping before we start. There's a chat box down the bottom. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in there and I will cover them as we go. We'll be running for about 45 minutes this morning. It's a relatively straightforward topic that we're going through. I wasn't 100% sure how long it was going to take. So we might wrap up a little bit earlier, otherwise I'll be hanging around to answer any questions that you have as well. Finally, there will be a recording of this webinar available as well. So if you would like to watch it again later on, if you want to follow along to set up your own filters later on, that recording will be available and the email with the link should go out this afternoon, depending on how organised I am. Okay, so jumping in. Why would we use IP address filters, first of all? And the reason is really to have an accurate picture of the data that we really want to focus on. So what we're talking about specifically today is removing internal traffic. So obviously all of you have a bit of an idea about what this means. But basically, our raw Google Analytics reports show everyone who comes to our website, and that may include ourselves and those of us who manage our own websites, often visit them quite a lot, and we visit them in a different way and with a different purpose to what our target audience website visitors might do. We may also spend a lot longer on the website than our target audience visitors might do, which could skew those overall results. And we want to be as accurate with our reporting as possible. So it's really important to focus on the information that really matters, but also make sure we're doing it correctly so that we're not losing any overall data. And that's a really important aspect of what we're going to go through this morning, is setting up these filters correctly and safely. We do retain our overall website data as well as knowing what we need to focus on specifically as well. I'm just going to flip the camera off because it can sometimes affect the quality. I like to say hello in person so you know that it's a real person here giving these webinars. Cool, so a couple of things that I want to cover before we jump into my Google Analytics account to show you how to set these up are the main components that we'll be using, which is the view. So it's important to understand the overall Google Analytics account structure because we're going to be making edits within a specific view, and then also filters. So looking at our Google Analytics account structure, first of all, there are three main components within a Google Analytics account. There's the account itself, there are properties that sit within an account, and there are views within that account. And this is accessed through the admin section, which I'll be demonstrating in a moment. So an account is the highest level of an organisation, and you need at least one account to have access to Google Analytics. So when you are creating a Google Analytics account from scratch, you're creating the account, which automatically creates one property and one view within that account. An account can contain one or more properties. So depending on your organisation and how many websites or apps, because you can use Google Analytics in apps and kiosks and other tools as well, you may actually choose to have multiple properties that sit within one account. And just when we're talking about account, we've got to kind of keep in mind the difference between Google Analytics account and a Google account. So each individual requires a Google account, their own Google account to access Google Analytics, but they are two separate things. So within an account, we have a property. And as I mentioned, a property is a specific website, a mobile app, or a device, for example, a kiosk or a point of sale device. You can use Google Analytics properties to track Eventbrite events. YouTube channels and accounts get more detailed statistics. There's a lot of other tools which will actually allow you to embed that Google Analytics tracking code and monitor what's going on. But we predominantly use them for websites, and that's what we're going to be focusing on chatting today. So a unique tracking code with a unique ID is generated for each property, and that's the little, either that ID or that full tracking code is what you place into the head tag of your website to allow Google Analytics to track on every single page. And the data is only collected from the point in time when that tracking code is successfully installed on all pages. So Google Analytics and these types of web analytics tools that use this piece of JavaScript and this tracking method, they don't track in retrospect. We only track from the point in time that they're installed onwards. So it's always good to get them installed as soon as possible and avoid any potential downtime where you could possibly lose some data. And while we do have some real-time reports available within Google Analytics, we predominantly use it for historical data analysis. And so then allowing 24 hours for that full data collection, the full day's collection, to make sure we're looking at everything that occurred within that 12 a.m. period. The final component is a view. So each property can contain one or more views, and a view is a defined view of reporting data. And that's what we're actually looking at. We're looking at the view when we look at our Google Analytics reports. And one unfiltered view is automatically created. And I always recommend leaving this completely unfiltered for comparison, so you know that you've got a complete picture of everything that's happening on your website. And that's called all web data or all website data. And you should usually that's the one that you'll actually focus your reporting on. That's the default one that most people look at. And yes, absolutely leave it completely as is. You can create additional views, which may include things like local IP filters, which is the example that I'm going to be showing you through today. But similarly to installing the tracking code on property, views will only contain data from the date that view was created onwards. So the view only starts tracking. I'm going to be setting up a new view today. It's only going to be including data from today onwards. It can't look back in retrospect. And if views are deleted, that data is gone forever. So this is absolutely not something to just play around with, views and filters, because this can have permanent effects on your data, as opposed to using something like a segment, which only changes how you are looking at the data. It doesn't permanently change your data. If it gives you some solace, views aren't immediately deleted. Google Analytics does has a feature where when you do delete views, they're put into a trash can, and you do have a period of time to reinstate them. And usually there are no issues with reinstating it, but it's just something I do want to point out, that while there are some aspects of Google Analytics that we can play around with and test, this is one you do want to be certain about before you start going and creating or deleting anything. So that's just a quick overview of the account, and we'll see that when I jump into my Google Analytics account as well. We've got account, property and view, and we're going to be making changes in the view section. The other aspect of what we're going to be talking about today is filters. So as I just mentioned, filters permanently modify data in a view. The segments only change the way that we're looking at the data. So it's a temporary change of how we're seeing the data. Filters permanently modify data. So again, not something to play around with. And I'm going to be showing you the correct and safe way to set these up. Filters managed in the admin section as well within each specific view, and they're also applied from the time that they are created onwards. So today we're going to be looking at setting up a filter that removes internal traffic, but it's only going to be able to remove that traffic from today onwards. So again, if this is something you're interested in doing for your organisation, it's important to do it as soon as possible, and keep in mind that you're not going to be able to have that understanding in retrospect of how much traffic was actually coming to your website internally. So just in case you haven't gotten my stress on this so far, these are permanent changes. So we always want to either duplicate or create a new view before applying a filter. And we always want to keep one unfiltered view, such as that all website data. That way we always have that to refer back to and have that understanding of whether or not the filter is actually working correctly, because we can compare it and see whether or not there is less traffic than what it is in the all web data. And if for some reason, I'm always, I'm a very good scout, I'm all about being prepared. You want to be prepared for anything and have a backup plan in case you do for some reason need to look back and check on some aspect of your analytics report that offers you all of that information. So we are not making any changes to the all website data view. We're going to be looking at creating a new one. So filters aren't just removing internal traffic. Some common uses for filters are, the main example we're going to use is to exclude internal or even external traffic from reports. And the reason why you might want to do that is to, like I mentioned earlier, focus on your target audience. So your actual customers, potential customers, clients, the people who you service, the people who might be researching and visiting your website. Focus on what they are doing as opposed to, and not having that mixed up with any staff or your internal team or even website developers or any other suppliers who might visit your website regularly for another means. You may also want to just focus on your internal traffic. So that's another way. You can set up multiple views which have different filters. So one scenario, and have a think about while we're talking through this, what might work for you is potentially keeping that one all website data view, creating another view that excludes your internal traffic, so excludes your own team members. Like I mentioned, if you have developers or agencies or other organisations you work with who visit your website a lot, you may want to block them out and have one view that's just focused on your target audience, so excluding internal traffic. But then you may also create another one that focuses specifically on your team. You might want to look at, well, how are our people actually using our website? And this might work more so if you have a large team who access your website a lot to get information. And that also may be another view that you consider doing as well. So, so filters for internal, external, exclusion of traffic, really popular. But you can use filters in other ways as well. It might be for reporting on activity in a specific directory. So when we talk about a directory, it's a group of pages or a section of your website, and something like /blog or /shop may come after your website address. So if you want to, again, look at just how people are engaging within your blog or within your shop, you may keep your all web data, which looks at your entire website, but then create views that look at specific areas of your website as well. Or there may be particular stakeholders who only want to focus on a certain area. I've been working with a lot of large organisations recently, particularly government organisations who have quite large websites that almost have mini websites within them. So there'll be specific sections that different organisations use as their main website. They may have just a landing page or a landing page and a couple of sub pages within a section, and that may be accessed through a specific directory. So all pages start with / a certain phrase, or it might be a subdomain as well. And that subdomain you can see on the screen as an example, where you may have a section, again, such as a blog or a shop, and the subdomains are denoted as that short phrase like blog dot before the main domain. So we've been talking with them about setting up different views. Those stakeholders can focus on just their website, which is a specific section of a website. So again, they still have that overall view of the entire website and what's happening. throughout the entire site, but for particular reporting, they can focus just on that one section as well. So a few different ways you can use filters there, but we will focus on removing internal traffic at the moment. And for filters, there are two types. There are some predefined filters within Google Analytics. So some of those ones that I just mentioned that are really popular, excluding or including particular traffic, focusing on a particular subdirectory or subdomain. A lot of those, as you'll see when we jump in, are predefined filters, or you can create very specific custom filters as well. Won't be jumping into that today, but just keep in mind if you do want to look at dissecting your data and creating a very specific view, those custom filters could help you do that. And filter parameters are usually based on an include or exclude basis, or you can do things like forcing the case change and those types of things. So force things lowercase to keep things neat and tidy as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to my Google Analytics account. So this is the Google Analytics for my Scout Digital Training website. And this is one that I actually visit a lot. So it would be really good to set a specific view that excludes all of my visits from the website. So I come here a lot to get links for sharing on social media, double check course information, such as dates or times. I might cross-reference information a lot or send people examples. A lot of people, ask about which courses they should do. So I'm jumping on here a lot of time with this website open, which would definitely skew that traffic. I am only one person and one user. So in that sense, I can identify my own visits on the website are still affecting the analytics as well into the total number of sessions and time on site and pages per session and those types of things. So it's a really good reason to set up a view which excludes me. So like I mentioned, these changes are made within the admin section. So that's that cog icon in the bottom left-hand corner. So we'll click on that, and here you can see that breakdown of those three main components that I mentioned within the account. So we've got our overall account, and someone with a Google account can have access to multiple Google Analytics accounts. You can have up to 100. So I actually have access to lots of different Google accounts for the different organisations that I work with, and this is one of my own here. And we can see there's a few settings at that account level. An account can contain one or more properties. So while we are focusing on the Scout Digital Training website property, I actually have a lot of other properties set up within this account that we're looking at specific Eventbrite events. And like I mentioned, I could set up YouTube channel or Android apps, point of sale, kiosk, those types of things as individual properties as well. But usually you will have just one main website property, and there's different property settings and user management there as well. I should mention that to be able to set up these filters, you will need the edit permission on your own Google Analytics account access, because we are actually editing our Google Analytics than just viewing the data. So on our view here, we can see I have the all website data view. There's also another separate IP address filter view that I have set up previously when I've done these examples, but we're going to ignore that today and just pretend that there's only one all website data view. And it has its own setting. We're looking at all website data, and I'll just show you here that within filters, we've got no filters, and this is what you want to see on your all website data view. You want no filters to be on that data. You want to be looking at absolutely everything completely raw. Okay. So just jump back here. So to set up a new view, we can click on Create View. And again, it's asking, are we tracking a website or are we tracking a mobile app? We're tracking a website, and you can give your reporting view a name as well. Now these view names, property names, account names are all editable. So I recommend making them something quite descriptive so that you and anybody else who's accessing your reports understands really quickly and easily what they are. And it could be something like exclude Scout Office IP. So I'm going to know absolutely, without a doubt, as soon as I click on that view, that I'm looking at the data that doesn't include my own Office IP. You may want to make it something more, if this is going to be the main view that you're looking at, you might want to call it something like main view excludes internal traffic or something like that. So, and even after you've saved this, like I mentioned, you can change the name on that as well. We want to get our reporting time zone right so that if we are looking at things like the specific time people are visiting our website is correct. So for me, it's going to be Australia and Adelaide time. And you'll also see here as well that this property currently has one view and the maximum is 25. So you can actually really dissect your data and look at lots of different views if you would like to. So create view. So you can see now we're actually looking at main view, excludes internal traffic. And I'll just show you, if I jump over here into an audience report, we have no data here. And this is correct, like I mentioned, the views will only start tracking and recording data from the time that they're created. They don't work retrospectively. So we still have access to all of our previous data through that web view. But this one is going to have nothing, but it's going to start tracking from this point onwards. So do keep that in mind. It's not something we're able to go into retrospect with. The other thing we can do as well is if we just click on Realtime, somebody's checking out the website. But I'll just show, for example, if I go to the webinars page, we should actually see my visit to the website pop up here soon. There we go. This is only really going to work if you do have a small amount of traffic to your site. If you do have lots of traffic, it might be difficult to pick out your own real-time visit unless you are viewing quite an obscure. But you can see that even with a brand new view, it's working. It's tracking people on the website and it's tracking me because I am on our page at the moment from Adelaide. All right, so I'm going to jump back into admin. And we still have our main view excludes internal traffic selected. And what we're wanting to do is add a filter. So we're going down here into filters. And at the moment, there are no filters on this traffic, on this view. So we're going to add a filter. And you can either create a new filter or apply an existing filter. So this is something quite helpful if you are actually wanting to add a filter across a number of properties rather than creating it or views, rather than creating it over and over and over again. You can actually create and apply different ones. So this one is for Intersect, the co-working space that we use. But I'm going to show you how to create a new filter. So for this filter, as I mentioned, I'm at the Scout office at the moment. This is where I visit the website from predominantly. So I'm going to call it Scout Office IP. We've got different filter types. We have a predefined filter or custom filters. So that's where you can go through, I mentioned, and create some custom include exclude filters. But what we want to do is use one of the predefined ones because we are excluding traffic from a particular IP address. And this is where we are identifying my specific visits to the website. So every single device has a public and a private IP address. So each computer, each mobile phone will have its own private IP address. But what we're actually blocking out in this instance is the public IP address of the internet or Wi-Fi access, Wi-Fi network that is visiting the website. And those public IP addresses are shared across that internet network or Wi-Fi network. So for my Scout office, my laptop, my mobile phone, any other laptops that are all logged onto that same internet network or Wi-Fi network are all going to be sharing that same public IP address. And by excluding that public IP address, any device that is on that network is going to be removed from our Google Analytics. Within large companies and organisations, there may be IP addresses or subnets that are used across multiple sites. It could be a bit more of a complex setup, so you may need to ask your network administrator. But at the very basic level, what you can do to block out that public IP for a particular network, there's a couple of different sites you can use. You can just Google what's my IP address, so that usually will bring it up. I'll show you that as well. Otherwise, there's sites I've mentioned here. So there's what'smyip.org, or one that I've just found called ident.me. So if we go to what's my IP address, desktop. So this is what's my IP address.org, and it's showing here that my IP address for the Scout Office network is 14.203.31.223. So I can also, like I mentioned, there's that ident.me. This is a much simpler type of site, which all it's showing is the IP address, and it's the same. And even like I mentioned, you can Google. It'll probably still work even with that typo. And it even shows your IP address in the search result. So you don't even need to go to some of these websites, but there's lots of them. So you might need to do a little bit of homework first of all to figure out which IP addresses you want to, because you can exclude more than one. Like I mentioned, you may just want to set up filters that block out your own office or your own site. But if you do have other suppliers that access your website a lot, you may want to go through and make a list of them. If you work from home quite a lot, or in a co-working space like Intersect, think of all the places where you might be accessing the website a lot and potentially skewing that data. And visit, the easiest thing to do is Google what's my IP address when you're on the network at each of those locations, or ask the agency or something to let you visit these sites, or Google it and send you that specific IP address, and you can set all of those up as individual filters. So what we're wanting to do is we're excluding traffic from the IP addresses. We need to select a specific expression. So if you know the specific IP address, then, which is what we're doing in this case, then I would select that are equal to. If you do have a series, and again, this is probably where you're getting into more complex filters that I've discussed with your network administrator before employing, that all begin with the same numbers or end with the same numbers or contain the same numbers, then you may select one of those other more complex expressions. But we're going to do it equal to, and I can pop in here that IP address that we just found by jumping onto my network, and I can click save. So we'll see here now that within that main view, I've got one filter at the Scout Office IP. We're creating one filter at a time. So if you do actually want to filter out multiple sites, then you would continue, create additional filters, give that filter a name, again, make it really descriptive so you know exactly what it is. If it's a particular agency, put their name in there. If it's your home office or your home network, put your name in there, and make it really, really clear so you know exactly what it is that you're filtering out of your traffic. So one thing I do want to mention while we are looking at setting up these filters is mobile traffic. and your mobile's IP address. And this is a little bit more complex. So like I mentioned, if your mobile is enabled to access the Wi-Fi network at your office or any of these networks that you're blocking out, then any visits that you make to the website from your mobile while you're on those networks will also be blocked out. Now, if you want to actually block out your mobile completely and specifically all the time, that is going to be a lot more challenging. Because mobiles, they have, while the device itself has an IP address and it still uses the same kind of private and public IP address, when you're accessing the internet networks of your ISP provider, that IP address is constantly changing depending on where the closest tower is. So you could actually go through and check within, for something like an iPhone in your settings in Wi-Fi, you can actually click on that information and it will show the IP address. But this is going to change depending on where you are. Personally, I feel like as long as you are blocking out the main internet networks that are accessing your website regularly and that are going to be really skewing the data, it's the best you can do. And as good scouts, we're all about doing our best. There may still be some visits that slip through. And if you happen to be working remotely, you've traveled somewhere else that's not actually blocked out and you're visiting the website, there's going to be those odd visits that come through. But this is about doing our best to block out the majority of visits from our internal networks that are possibly going to be skewing the traffic. Just wanted to mention that there. If you are looking at trying to block out absolutely everything, there's possibly going to be a couple of exceptions there. So like I mentioned, you can continue adding additional filters if there's extra people that you want to exclude. Otherwise, we could leave it as at just one there. And if we go back to our real-time reports now, we should, this is going to be the big test, we should actually see that now that I'm visiting my website from that IP address, but we have a filter applied, that it's actually not going to show my visit. The real time can sometimes take a little bit of time to tick in, so we just want to make 100% sure, but this is a way that you can test whether or not your filter is actually working. Just remember, you do have to be at network at the time to check whether or not it's actually working. Definitely not showing, so it looks like they're working there. Of course, I just want to show quickly before we finish up. So at the moment, what we've still got the all website data. We've got a main view that excludes internal traffic. Like I mentioned, you may actually want to make one that includes external traffic. So it could be something like internal visits only. Again, you want to make sure you have all of these settings right. This is not necessarily going to be relevant for everyone, but it might be helpful, like I mentioned, if you've got a large organisation who you know is accessing your website a lot and you want to see how they're accessing it, we could set up another filter. We're going to actually do it exactly the same way, except now rather than excluding, we're going to be including. I'm just going to call this one, include. So last time we chose exclude because we wanted to exclude my visits to the website from this network. Now we can use include only, traffic from an IP address, that's equal to, I pop in that exact same IP address and click save, and you can see include. Now, if we go back to our real-time reports, refresh it by going to a new page. We should actually see me pop up. There I am. I'm looking at the all courses page. So we're including my visits to the website now. And this way I can have a look at exactly how often I'm visiting the website, what pages I'm looking at, how long I'm on there for, and those types of things. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that you can use the internal or internal and external filters to remove that traffic from your reports. So like I mentioned, keep in mind always you can duplicate or create a new view before applying a filter. So think of what you might like to filter out, whether or not there are multiple networks that you need to filter out. And if you do need some help from your domain administrator, your network administrator to figure out what those actual IP addresses are, particularly if they are some organisations that have multiple sites around the country may actually share an overall IP address, or they may be individual. It's really difficult to say without checking or speaking to that overall network administrator. And you definitely want to keep that one unfiltered view of all web data so you can have a look at everyone who is coming to your website and also check back and see whether or not things are working there as well. Also, a couple of things I just wanted to show you before I go, and feel free to pop any questions in the chat box if you want to clarify anything or have any questions about how you could be using your organisation. But if you are interested in any more Google Analytics information, obviously we're doing more of these types of webinars, but I do have a heap of blog posts on the website as well. This is on the scoutdigitalmarketing.com.au website. There's a whole category on Google Analytics, including a couple of videos. So a video I launched this week about how to set up cross-device tracking in Google Analytics. You can watch that on the blog, as well as a number of other posts and a couple of videos there. So you can have a look through those to get some more information. There's also videos on the YouTube, so you can either look on the website or on the blog, Scout Digital Marketing and Training YouTube channel. There's a few short videos there as well, and that's where I'll be popping up the recording of this webinar, but I'll be sending you out the direct link to that later on as well. Hopefully that's helpful with understanding how you can better focus on the traffic that really matters to your website by getting it nice and clean, filtering out anybody who might be skewing your metrics. So like I said, if we're sitting on our website and have it open or visiting it repeatedly during the day, it's going to affect the number of sessions and the overall time and average time on the site as well. So figuring out who needs to be excluded, what their IP addresses are, and setting up those filters in a new view will, from the day that it's created onwards, allow you to be able to focus on what real visitors. So thanks very much for joining me again. I'll send out this recording later on this afternoon so you can refer back to it if you want to have it playing while you're setting up your own filters. If you have any questions about doing this for your organisation, like I said, I'm going to be staying here so you can pop those questions in the chat box. Otherwise, feel free to contact me directly if there's anything you're uncertain about. Otherwise, I'll say goodbye there. Yeah, happy filtering and focusing on your traffic. And yeah, like I said, any questions, feel free to let me know. Always here to help out. And let me know any other topics that you might be interested in having in future webinars as well. I have a list of the ones that I think are most relevant and the ones that I get asked about a lot. But if there's anything specifically that you're interested in learning about during these sessions or some of those short how-to videos that I'm starting to do, feel free to let me know here or on any of our social channels, and I will add them into the mix. Have a good day. Bye.